program Your MP Your Vote with me, Tilusha Vias. Today we have with us the very charming and vibrant Conservative candidate for the City of Cambridge, CHAMALI FernándO. I hope I've said your name right.
You have indeed.
Who's the first Asian candidate to stand in this place, and also the first Sri Lankan to contest a seat in this part of the country. Yeah?
That's right.
Welcome to the program, CHAMALI. To begin with, you have a degree in law. You're a lawyer as a profession.
Yes.
But you were also born in the East Midlands. So please tell us more about your background.
So I was born and raised in Leicester, and then when I was 18, I asked my father for a gap year. And he said, you can have a gap year, but you have to study. And I said, Dad, that's not the point of a gap year. The point of a gap year is that I have a gap from studying. And he came to a compromise. It's what I call an Asian gap year, which is if I studied for a little part of it, then I could have the rest of it on holiday. And so I found a school in Cambridge that would allow me to take an additional A-level in a short, condensed space of time. And the subject I chose was politics, because my high school in Leicester was, before I got there, 20 years before I got there, it was a finishing school for girls. So a lot of the subjects were on the arts side. I studied English, French and maths at A-level. And politics was not an option, philosophy was not an option, business studies was not an option. And economics wasn't even on the syllabus at A-level. I found this school in Cambridge. I'd been passionate about politics, and it allowed me to take an A-level from start to finish in either 3 or 5 months. So I negotiated with my father a 5-month A-level and then 7 months on a gap year.
So you studied politics because your father also stood for a seat. Was the first Sri Lankan to stand for a seat before Naj Deva became the first Sri Lankan politician.
That's right. So in 1983, I was about 4 years old. My father contested Leicester West. He didn't get elected, but he was the first Sri Lankan to ever fight a parliamentary seat in the UK. So it was historic in that sense, and it resulted in myself and my family meeting the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka around that time, who was a female.
So in 2010, we had the first Asian, half a dozen or so female candidates ever to be elected as MPs in British political history. But this time, you and another candidate are the first 2 ever female Sri Lankans. So this is another breakthrough. It
is, and it's very pleasing to see that Parliament is beginning to reflect the social composition of modern Britain. We have a voice as an Asian community, we have a voice as a Sri Lankan community as well, but also we have a voice as women. And yes, we tick a few boxes. It's about getting the brightest ones into Parliament, and brilliant. If we tick those boxes as well, we begin to change the dynamic, and the message it sends to those people who are younger than us, who might be from an Asian background, is come forward, because if we can do it, you can do it. But you studied law and you spent some time in USA as a barrister and also sworn in as an attorney in New York. Yes. So what made you come back to the UK then? Well, actually, the bulk of my practice is in England, so I've been working as a barrister in England for 12 years. I have also qualified and become a licensed attorney in New York. That's something I did 2 years ago, because another passion of mine is you never stop learning, and every year you should do something more successful than the year before. And you should aim to be more successful than the year before. So in 2012, I decided to sit my New York bar exams, and I've been out to New York to do cases, but the bulk of my practice has been in the UK. So how did that career of yours in law get linked into politics? You managed to somehow link it beautifully. I'm very fortunate. I've had a broad mixed practice at the bar, and it has enabled me to get an understanding of areas of law such as planning, environmental, employment law, criminal litigation and commercial litigation. So I've dealt with a variety of problems. I've represented people from all walks of life, including the most vulnerable in our society, those facing jail, facing the loss of their business, the loss of their home, the loss of their job. Did you not work also with the Conservative Party with regards to your own political background, your own degree background? No, I have been campaigning with the Conservatives since I joined in 2009, and your viewers probably know that I was a Liberal Democrat before then.
Right. So what enticed you to join the Conservative Party, no other party?
Well, for me, David Cameron had very much brought the Conservatives to the centre ground of British politics. I am a Buddhist by philosophy, and it's very easy to extrapolate, for me, what the policies should be for a political party, using the sort of John Stuart Mill philosophical argument as well, which is that you can do what you like up until the point that it causes harm to someone else. And for me, David Cameron had moved the Conservatives away from that right-wing tendency to a place where actually I felt this is the party I should be a member of. There was a gap. In January 2009, I left the Liberal Democrats, partly through sheer frustration. I saw the Liberal Democrats at a very high level, operating in a way that I didn't like. And it wasn't just methodology, but it was also policy. And I left politics for about 6 months of my life, and I thought, that's it, you know. Whilst I'm going to be active in terms of campaigning on other people's campaigns, I wouldn't be having a frontline role.
So why did you choose Cambridge in particular to stand as a candidate?
So Cambridge is a very prestigious seat, and it's pretty fiercely fought within the Conservative Party to get the chance to fight Cambridge, partly because if you split the two main political parties down the middle at the top level, half went to Cambridge, half went to Oxford. I didn't go to either. I was at University College London. But I had that background in Cambridge. It's a beautiful city. One day I'd like to get married and have children. It's a lovely city to bring up children. It's high on the happy index. You know, you see as you drive around.
It's famous for the Cambridge University, but then there are other areas, like you have the Silicon Fen, which is the high-tech centre.
Yes.
And workforce, 40% of the workforce that has a higher education qualification than anywhere else in the country.
Yes, it's considered an intellectual seat, probably the highest intellectual seat in the country. So on the doorstep, the conversations you have are not 2-minute conversations. You can engage in a detailed discussion on something that might be the constituent's PhD research area, and so there's a need as a candidate to be able to address a variety of issues. Cambridge is also famous for having probably the highest number of hustings of any constituency. So we've got 36 hustings in the diary. And that, you know, they range from subjects such as animal welfare and rights, euthanasia, environment and climate change, which is another big area of mine, the cycling campaign. So Cambridge is the #1 cycling city in Britain, and so there's a huge cycling community in Cambridge. And this has led to a variety of different hustings on different topics. We have some general ones where all questions are asked, but some very specific ones with the electorate who, in some cases, is more knowledgeable on that specific issue than some of the parliamentary candidates standing here.
Some of the issues that, as far as Cambridge is concerned, and you say are your priorities, are improve quality of life. Can you tell us more about that?
So this is about supporting those who need it most. Those who are in need of welfare, we need to make sure that they get the hand up in society, but also looking after our pensioners and the elderly. You know, it's a great Asian tradition to make sure you look after your parents, and I think this is what draws me as well to the Conservative Party: the sense of family values, the sense of respect for your elders, the sense of respect for society, and that there should be a community.
Entrepreneurship.
Yes, entrepreneurship is another huge area where Asians can have a big impact. We had the Chinese community hustings in Cambridge over the weekend, and many of the people there are from the business community or have the desire to get into business. There are also a large number of Chinese students studying at both of the universities here in Cambridge. We've not only got Cambridge University, but Anglia Ruskin as well.
Another aspect that you say is create more employment opportunities. That's what you've been campaigning for. So what's the unemployment level like here?
It's pretty low. It's 1.8%, which is much less than the rest of the country. Obviously, under this government, we have created 1.85 million jobs, 80% of which are full-time. We've also seen the start-up of 760,000 new businesses. And incidentally, a great hallmark for Cambridge is 5 of those new businesses that have started up in Cambridge have gone on to be billion-dollar companies. So for us, it's about creating the right environment for businesses to say, yes, you know what, I'm going to expand, I'm going to take on more staff, I'm going to pay my staff more, I'm going to step out into a new area of my business, or I'm going to start a new business. No one starts a business in an economic downturn unless, of course, they're an insolvency practitioner. So creating jobs and job opportunities is also about equipping the workforce of tomorrow with the skills they need to be able to access the global jobs market.
And you also mentioned build a greater, fairer, sustainable society. Can you explain that?
So I believe we have the opportunity, with Cambridge being this internationally recognised seat, not just for education, but also we have pioneers in science, innovation, research, technology. We've got the clean tech cluster, we've got the biotech cluster. There's a lot happening in Cambridge that has now enabled us to compete with other global cities. And this is where having a truly visionary MP, someone with a broader outlook, not just concerning themselves with the everyday problems, which of course you have to do as an MP. That was my bread and butter at 12 years at the bar, dealing with people's everyday issues. But actually, let Cambridge punch well above its weight. We have the chance here in Cambridge to, not only by modelling ourselves on what we feel society should look like, but actually challenge some of the bigger issues of the day. So tackling climate change, how do we deal with global child poverty? We can do that from Cambridge. And that is really the opportunity for the people of Cambridge.
I believe there's a $1 billion city deal for Cambridge to improve housing, transport, jobs.
That's right.
What does that entail?
So this was the deal signed between central government and local actors and the local authority. So there's partners such as the university are involved, local business groups are also involved. And it's great, you know, 1 billion is a lot of money, but we need more, is the reality. Cambridge suffers from enormous traffic problems. You know, 16 years ago there were traffic problems. Today there are worse traffic problems in Cambridge. So part of the city deal is about sustainable growth. And unless we have that sustainable development, we won't get the additional instalments on the 1 billion. So the way it's structured is 200 million came in this April, and that's going towards a variety of projects. And as long as those projects can be seen to be sustainable, then we get the next 200 million, and then we get the 100 million at the end, and there's a 500 million that's coming in from local actors.
And what about the NHS issue, which has become a big political potato? There's issues concerning Papworth Hospital to be moved to Cambridge.
That's right. I mean, that's actually a good thing for us. It's so important for us to be able to have access to great resources. Cambridge University is considered one of the leading, Cambridge University Hospitals is considered one of the leading hospitals in the country. We have the specialist brain injury unit here, but also having that link between science, research and the hospital enables us to deal with specialist infections. For example, in fact, very sadly, when I came here as the candidate, within a few months, a family friend of mine, whom I got to know when my father was contesting elections in 1987 up in Nottingham North, he was diagnosed with a very rare kidney infection. And he was moved from another hospital to Cambridge, Adam Brooks Hospital.
But under the Conservatives, there have been a lot of cutbacks in the NHS. So, you know, somehow doesn't add up. You know, finding the right type of funding, which, you know, the cutbacks are right across the country.
Actually, what you'll find is this Conservative-led government has put the highest any government has ever put into the National Health Service. We've put 12.9 billion into the NHS since 2010, and that has translated to 9,500 new doctors, 7,000 new NHS nurses, 2,200 new NHS midwives, and we want to do more. Obviously, there have been difficult decisions that we've had to take, but we have ring-fenced our spending on the NHS so it's protected, because we in the Conservative Party firmly believe in an NHS that is free at the point of delivery.
What about education? There's been a crisis with regards to the number of teachers in education. So how are you looking to solve this issue here?
Well, it's great that you've asked these questions, because health and education are probably the biggest things for Cambridge. In terms of education, we are introducing a National Fellowship Award, which enables teachers from some of the best schools in the country, where the discipline is good, to be able to lend a helping hand to less well-to-do schools, those which are considered to be failing, and help boost those schools. And we will recognise that if they commit 2 terms to 2 years to a school, we will recognise that with a National Fellowship Award, so that you get this sort of spread of growth and success. The other key thing is it's about training up more teachers, particularly in the areas of maths and physics, and that again is very relevant to Cambridge, because we have a huge science cluster here. We actually have more apprenticeships in science in Cambridge than we have students to fill those places. So if you're looking for an apprenticeship in science, come to Cambridge.
I believe there is a high proportion of undiagnosed autism in Cambridge. What is the reason for this, and what's happening?
There's a lack of early diagnosis for children aged 12 to 17, and that's partly a lack of understanding, not enough funding for that area. So it's an aspect of my campaign that I'm working on quite intensively. There's a group called Cambridge Ahead and also Cambridge Area Partnership, who are keen to get children into apprenticeships. And with Cambridge Area Partnership, which is responsible not just for the schools in Cambridge City, which is the constituency I'm fighting, but across Cambridgeshire, we're looking at getting children who have special needs into top apprenticeships. And the way to do that is you have to approach big business, because big business has the resources and the capabilities to take on the more challenging apprentices.
But this problem is right across all races in Cambridge. Why is it so particular to Cambridge, the issue of autism?
It's hard to tell. There are teachers on the doorstep whom I've met who have told me that when you get 2 intellectuals marrying, sometimes the offspring can have can develop things like yes, or could develop things like autism.
But
I don't
in life
think
they grow up to be very intelligent.
This is the thing, and you will find many of the academics in Cambridge are super bright, and I suppose it's the nature of the job. You get very specialist and very focused on the subject that you've studied, and you'll find also with children with autism, if they find their niche, they can really fly. A constituent that I know called Jill, her son Henry, who I met very early on in the campaign, was struggling at school, and he's on the Asperger spectrum. However, he decided that he wanted to become a pilot, and he's one of the youngest children to get a flying apprenticeship, and he is literally flying. It's so great to see that he has found his niche, and I think it goes for anyone, whether you have any difficulties in life, any child, the opportunity to realise your dream and realise your ambition, and actually figure out what it is that you want to do in the world. And if you figure it out, and if you figure it out and it can make you money and it makes you happy, that is a dream.
So what sort of issues or concerns have the public raised when you've been out campaigning?
So it depends actually where you campaign in Cambridge. On the outskirts of the constituency, places like Arbury, King's Hedges, people will like to talk about immigration, they like to talk about the need for an EU referendum, and the issues on the doorstep on those 2 subjects can be very polarised. However, as you get closer to the centre, you've got more of an academic community in places like Petersfield and Newnham, and the issues are what one might call first world problems: the environment, climate change, how can we improve this cycling path? So it's very different in Cambridge. It's this mixed community that brings diversity to this seat.
You totally agree with the Conservative Party with regards to curbing immigration levels. into the UK.
Well,
and can you expand on this?
our policy in the Conservative Party is, if you're bright, if you're going to contribute to society, we want you. And that's the key thing. We do have a finite number of resources in this country, and we need to ensure that our public sector services are not brought under immense strain through unfazed migration. So that's the paramount issue. Secondly, if we've trained you, if we recognise you are the talent, you are the future of Britain, we want you in this country. So my parents came as migrants to this country. My mother came here in 1967 to do her nursing training, and then she went on to become a midwife and lectured in midwifery and dedicated 20 years of her life to the NHS. After that, she had a short break to look after my brother and myself, but then went on to become a lay magistrate as well for a further 20 years. My father was an attorney in Sri Lanka already, but he wanted to come here to do his solicitor's exams in this country and qualify in England. And he said, you know, I have no reason to claim off the state, and obviously made a very positive contribution to society as well here.
But the problem here in the east of England is that it's an immigration issue. There's the labourers, and then there's the nurses and doctors who work in the hospital, and that seems to be a concern in this part of the world?
Not so much in Cambridge. In Cambridge, like you said earlier, we have a highly intellectual electorate, and generally in Cambridge we embrace immigration because the people that come to Cambridge from foreign countries are either coming to study and study at one of the, well, we would say the world's best, but we are effectively, I think, one of the world's best university.
Of Cambridge.
Absolutely.
And globally.
Absolutely.
Leaders.
And we've had leaders in science, leaders in all fields in Cambridge. So if you're coming to Cambridge University, you're definitely a bright mind, and we want you. Then we also have people who are coming to work in the science and the technology sector. You mentioned Silicon Fen earlier, and there are people coming from places like India to work in our technology sector in Cambridge.
Chamali, there is over 8% of the population here is British Asians, and majority, 73.5% are there's a white population. So what are the concerns that have been brought to your attention as far as the Asians are concerned?
So at the Chinese community hustings, the fact that they feel they don't have a voice in Cambridge was very interesting. You know, they play such a vibrant part of the community in Cambridge, whether that be at the university or whether that be in technology or in business. And really what we're saying is step forward. We've got a Malaysian boy standing, well not boy, a Malaysian man standing as a council candidate. He was born and raised in this country, but he's of Malaysian origin. And I think that speaks volumes about what the Conservative Party is about, equality of opportunity as well. In terms of the Bangladeshi community, we have a thriving Bangladeshi community in Cambridge, and I've been to the mosque to say hello and introduce myself. We had hustings at the mosque as well. There's also a Cambridge Buddhist centre, and they had a hustings as well.
Hindus and Muslims?
Yeah, there is a Gurdwara in Cambridge, and I've been there too, just initially to meet as many people as possible and find out what the issues are. And I think it's so important that Asians engage with the political arena. For all too often we've been quiet and we've allowed things to happen without airing our voice, and we've become disenfranchised from the political process. I was very lucky. I was born into a politically active family. My father contested 2 parliamentary seats when I was younger. Every Sunday we used to watch Breakfast with Frost for as long as I can remember, and then it was Midlands Westminster after that. And it was almost like a religion in our household, that that's what happened on a Sunday. And for me, politics is almost, it comes as second nature. But for many people, they feel detached from this process, and actually politics affects all of us, whether it be you're concerned about speeding on your roads, or you're concerned about policing in your area, or you're concerned about the bigger foreign policy issues. That's politics. And I learned very early on that if you open a newspaper, all the articles relate to either law or politics.
Well, thank you, Chamali. We'll take a short break for now. We'll see you very soon after the commercials.